Welcome to another exhilarating episode of Comic Book Straight Talk, brought to you from the secret basement inside one of America's oldest comic shops, Tulsa's own The Comic Empire. Now, true believers, open up your ear holes and get ready to have your head filled with the best comic book knowledge this galaxy can handle. That's right, it's time for another nerd overload with Comic Book Straight Talk.
Welcome back to Comic Book Straight Talk. This is Dalian.
Terry.
Kenny.
And James. Here.
And James.
He's waving at you.
He's waving at you. Y'all can't see him. I realize I do that too. I talk with my hands on the show sometimes, and they can't see. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about
talking with your hands.
Talking with your hands in the comics podcast. Yes. No. Collecting old school collecting back in the day, reading comics back in the day compared to kind of reading them now, and really which is better. Because I know back in the day, I'm going to hear that a lot, I think.
Way back.
Way back. I mean, we're talking
back before
what, 30 years, 20 years, even 20 years actually, 20 or 30. Before you didn't have
your shops.
You didn't. Well, you had your comic shops.
Well, you had
your comic shops. You went not many, right?
Yeah, you did.
You went to Kenny. I think it's mentioned about going to. Well, no, you came to the shop. That's right. When you first did you go to why am I getting that look? Didn't you say that you've gone? Did your mom pick you up comics at?
No, my mom wouldn't buy me comics because she said I'd just tear them up. But she bought me baseball cards and stuff like that. So
and those were tore up, right?
No.
But the comics would get tore up.
But comics would get tore up if she bought them.
She said I wouldn't read them and I'd just tear them up, so she would never buy them for me.
But you started in.
I had comics when I was a kid. I just don't remember them that much.
I think we all had comics.
Outside of the Star Wars comics, I don't remember much. I know I had like a couple of old Marvel horror books, like Chamber of Chills or something like that. But
as a kid, I had a fair amount of comics, and I took care of them probably as best a kid could take care of them, I guess.
But your mom.
But they were like
took you to the grocery store or convenience store and you picked them up. James, I assume the same thing. I mean, they were more prevalent then.
You had easier access.
Right. Prevalent, yeah.
But, you had easier access to comics generically. You couldn't.
Right.
If you read Justice League, there might be the latest issue of Justice League. There might not. There might be Batman. There might be Captain America. You read whatever comic was available to you. You couldn't get a run of something.
Well, did you ever have your mom or dad take you to different places to try to find?
Oh, hell
no. It was the only time I ever got to see comic books was if we were somewhere near a 7-Eleven or a convenience store like that, or we were grocery shopping, and I would spend my time up by the comics while she was getting the goods, the food, stuff like that.
I remember, and I related before on the show, that Ertley's or Davis over on Memorial Street or Avenue, I would go in because my mom would go get medicine there and pick up stuff, and so I'd go straight back to the magazines in the spinner rack, and look there and get pick up a comic or two there. I think my earliest memory though was my neighbors gave me some, like a Ghost Rider and I had the Black Hole Disney movie comic adaptation. But anyway, you're able to get them, like you said, you were able to get them then. Now, granted, today, yes, we have comic shops. They're not in the grocery stores as much.
Magazines as a whole are not really in the grocery stores anymore.
Right.
So that was one thing. I mean, they weren't necessarily easier. They weren't really easier to access. They were just at places that your mom and dad would shop and that you would be at. Like the.
Well, I remember in high school I could stop at like Quick Trip and they would have a comic spinner rack, there.
But it wasn't easy to, like James said, to collect a run.
Right. No.
You may get there, in January, but somehow you were never able to get to a 7-Eleven or Quick Trip or what in February, so you missed out on whatever issue you were collecting that next month.
Yeah, and they wouldn't hold them back, so...
Back then they would come in and, like I've related this story before, I saw this person ripping the comics and the top of it off, and I was aghast as a young kid and asked them, well, if you're just going to destroy them, can I have them? And they're like, no, we're sending these back so we can get our money.
But that's the thing.
Did you offer him $1?
I didn't have much of a dollar. I think I had 50 cents or something at the
Because all they had to do is rip off the top part.
Yeah.
And then send it back and they got the credit.
But
they had to certify that they destroyed the rest.
Yeah.
Well,
If they got caught not destroying the rest, then they get in trouble.
But I got a big flat no.
You got a big no.
Yeah.
And I guess what...
It scares me to this day.
How did that feel?
It did not feel good at all.
Terry doesn't like no when it comes to comics.
I don't like... That's why here recently when I had trouble with a comic book that was... I was trying to, send it back, and they said, no, just rip off the cover, and then we'll send you a replacement. I'm like, oh!
You had to go to therapy for that for a couple days. What? I guess what brought this, my thinking about this topic and stuff, was that, back then when I was reading comics, you only they were well. Besides being good, you really only had places to talk. You come to a comic shop and talk about it, or to your friends that read comics. And my friends didn't read comics, so
as a young kid, there weren't a whole lot of kids that read comics. There was a few geeks that did them, but there weren't a whole lot. So most of your reading was self-contained to yourself.
And your parents didn't want to. Your parents didn't care about it.
No, your parents.
Well, and it was the generic hero. You didn't talk to your friends about what Iron Man did in this month's thing. You talked to your friends about there's a hero called Iron Man, and they had read some Iron Man comics or had seen the cartoon, and you had read some, and you could just talk about the generic.
Yeah, and you didn't understand. Hey, I saw in this issue Iron Man. He fought the Mandarin, and he did this with his armor.
Never about issues back then. It was
but
comic books, right?
Right. But in the newest issue, in the newest story,
who's your favorite Iron Man bad guy?
Yeah, back then I probably couldn't. I had a good stack of comics, but issue numbers didn't play into it. It was just
the new story. The new story. Hey, the new issue came out, and I saw
most of mine weren't new comics for the most part. A lot of them wound up just being used hand-me-down comics. Somebody else had comic books,
right? Well, even as you've gotten older, though, and matured on your. Not too much older, but I'm just saying.
What are you saying?
I guess I'm saying, I didn't have the friends to talk to about that, about the books and everything. So we talked about.
You didn't have any friends.
I didn't have any friends, basically. Yeah, you're right. That's basically what it comes down to. Yeah. Syndrome. So I would talk to people when I came in on Wednesday or on Fridays at the time. It was Friday then. About when I'd pick up the books up here, I'd talk to people. Hey man, this is really good.
Though, years later, though, when you started coming. You were still a young kid when you started.
Right, when I was in elementary school or middle school, yeah. But people weren't really spoilers. There were no spoilers too much either at that time, unless you talked to your friends. Hey man, I saw in this news. I picked up this news issue.
It was kind of hard to get a spoiler for the most part because you're limited to who you were talking to, and it wasn't spread about through the internet.
As of now, right? As I say, now you have the internet, and books are spoiled.
And Dow.
Monday.
Dow loves to read spoilers.
Dow is the spoiler.
I have tried this last year not to spoil stuff as much as I can.
But you may have tried not to spoil it for other people, but you loved it for yourself, though, to go on sites and read spoilers.
Sometimes, but I'm also, that's kind of the speculator kind of thing. And if I know,
right,
the salesman thing, but the vendor of cons, but. You got Marvel and DC now. A book comes out Wednesday. Well, they're telling the New York Times or the USA Today on Monday or Sunday night, hey, this is what happens in this issue that comes out.
And the New York Times is like, who's this? Why are you calling us?
Well, and they'll run the article, but it seems like now, with the advent of the internet and everything, the spoilers are out there. So you kind of take that, I don't know what to call it, that mystique out of what happens, I guess. They're
doing it to boost sales.
Yeah,
right. I understand they're doing it to boost sales, but
that's why certain artists and and writers get on Twitter and they'll tweet about something they're getting ready to come up because they're wanting to boost sales.
Right, and that's all it
like
is now.
The death of Superman started all that crap, or the death of Robin.
Well, on that you got to call the number. You got to vote if he died.
Right, I know, but
and you didn't know.
It got time in mass media, in the mainstream media, and that's what caused the speculation of the 80s and
So what was the first store you guys started buying comics from?
First store?
Yeah, first store. Not necessarily a comic book store, but just like a Quick Trip or.
So when I was a kid, we'd go to the grocery store, and my parents sort of didn't really want me reading comic books. They understood it was going to happen, but they didn't go out of their way to encourage it. But so I'd tell my mom that I was going to go over to the toy section and look at the toys and play with the toys. Well, I'd be over there for about 2 minutes, and then I'd head over to the comic book section. And it was like right on the way out of the grocery store, so she really didn't mind because she knew where to get me on the way out. And they had... I'd flip through the books, but they had a DC trade of all the secret origins of Green Lantern and Superman and Batman and all those. So every week at the grocery store, I'd get to read one more secret origin of where one of these heroes came from and hope like hell that nobody bought this book in the next week.
Did you ever hide them behind the other magazines?
Probably.
I did that as a young kid.
And like I'd go there and it wouldn't be there and I'd panic. And I'm like, I was halfway through the Green Lantern story, and then it'd be behind him. Oh, thank God. So,
I think for me, my first store that I remember buying things would be at Ertley's or Davis, and then the comic shop.
Well, mine was probably. I remember seeing them at 7-Elevens and stuff like that, but the place I really got the chance to really sit down and read comics was when Mom went shopping for food products, and it would be this warehouse market in Nespoliquo.
Yeah,
I would just sit there all the time she was there.
I was in college before I went to this comic shop.
What about you, Kenny?
Well, like I said, my mom wouldn't buy them for me.
Right, but what's the first story? At least you kind of tried to really have a chance to get it. Did you have a story like going to the food store and having a chance to read comics in?
No, the clutch went out in my car, and I took all my Star Wars toys to Vintage Stock to sell them so I could pay to fix the clutch in my car. And while they were looking all of them up, I picked up a Lady Death, Evangeline, an X-Force, and an X-Factor. Or no, X-Men and X-Factor.
So yours was kind of pretty much later in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Because, like I said, my mom wouldn't buy me comics.
At all, yeah.
So I'm like, why even bother looking at them if I know I can't get them?
Now,
but I remember a girl gave me some of her brother's old comics, and that's how I got that Chamber of Chills, and there's a bunch of Archies in there. And
I got the occasional comic. I got some of the big treasury ones. I got the...
yeah, my mom did buy me Star Wars comics, though. Those are probably the earliest I
got
remember.
the reprint of Action Comics #1, and I got the Superman versus the Flash, and then the Superman Bicentennial issue. And then like occasionally at Toys R Us they'd have the 3-packs of old comics, and they'd buy me a 3-pack, and none of those were ever sequential, or you just sort of read what you got.
Right. And so what was your first major kind of retail store that you went to? I mean, I'm thinking, I really can't remember for sure if mine was Comic Empire that somehow I got here as a kid, or if it was Lynn's shop in Sepulveda, Oklahoma.
I remember and I didn't realize it was World of Comics until about 5 or 10 years ago, over at Fontana.
Right.
They used to have a comic shop next to the movie theater, because I didn't realize it was World of Comics, but I remember going over there.
Wasn't there another one in the Fontana?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The one that went out of business and the IRS sold all their
Cosmic Quest
for cover price.
That's I thought Cosmic Quest was on Sheridan.
That's the
they were on
Sheridan.
Yeah, Cosmic Quest was on Sheridan
next to the Bowman Twin.
The Bowman Twin.
Okay, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Pegasus,
that was the big one, right?
Pegasus was over at 21st and Garnett, yeah. And I went over there. But yeah, mainly I stayed at the Comic Empire.
I was thinking of Cosmic Quest because it was big and they had a lot of windows and you could see all their comics. And I guess when they went out of business, it was for tax evasion or something. And the IRS came in. IRS came in and sold all the stuff, and they sold it for like cover price. And the guys have come in here telling me how they picked up like X-Men '94 for a quarter or whatever.
Right.
Kind of makes you sick.
Yeah, it really kind of does.
So in high school, I moved. High school's my sophomore year, and made a friend who had subscriptions and got Marvel Comics in subscription, and he'd bring 10 or 20, and I'd take them home and read them, and then give them back to him the next day or after the weekend. So I was getting more into comics, and then when I went to college, some of my friends were from Tulsa, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna go home this weekend. We're gonna hit our comic book store. You want to come with us?" And so it was this store, Comic Empire. It was the first comic store I'd been in, and I just remember like, oh my God, they're everywhere. It was Nirvana.
All right.
So was yours Vintage Stock? Was that kind of the first store that you were introduced to comics, Kenny?
Yeah, and I almost didn't get into comics because of it.
Oh yeah.
And I think I looked in the phone book and found Wizards Asylum, and I went in there a couple of times, but I mean, like, he'd have a back issue that came out the month prior, and it'd be like $5, and I'm like, these things are only $2. I mean, you're charging $5, and so I bought some Marvel cards from some store in the mall because they were going out of business, and they were selling the boxes of cards for like $4, and I got a whole, like, 8 whole sets of them, and called around to try to sell them, and I think I called Charles, and he said, you can bring him in on Saturday and talk to the owner, but I'm going to tell you he's not going to buy him. And so I came in anyway, and while I was here, I was looking around and found like a whole bunch of issues of Evangeline that I was missing, and they were all a quarter over cover.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, shit, I'm going to start going here. So that's how I got here, and then a year later I was working here, so...
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thanks to Dal and his, I'm going to go work for Warner Brothers store.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that move.
Yeah.
He's regretted it ever since.
Yeah.
Well, he spent all his paycheck at the store.
Yeah.
Hey, he spent a couple of my paychecks there, too.
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
did you see this Catwoman statue they got? God dang it.
Well, what's bad is, I went to work there and still got my books here, but, shortly after going to work there, I got divorced, so, it's like, well, shit. But no, but I think now, though, like I was saying, it's almost to the point where why read a book if things are going to be spoiled so much, though? Is it still? So if you read an article about that what happens in Captain America 50, example Captain America 25, back when they killed off Cap. I
think most people found out and bought it so they could find out how they killed Cap.
Yeah.
And I can remember when you brought up the death of Superman a while ago. I don't think it ever said, because I know previews and stuff, well, not previews, but Capital City was still distributing then. And I don't remember in the catalog it said anything about him dying. It's just, it's him, it's going to be, his battle with Doomsday and the end of it. I don't think until the book came out anybody even knew that it was the death of, unless they let retailers know beforehand, that they personally called each retailer and told them. I don't think it was.
I just remember Mike. I just know that Mike said that's the only time he ever took the phone off the hook.
So many people were calling to
because Death of Superman.
Yeah.
And he said he had lines out the door, people he had never seen before and never seen since.
Mm-hmm. Everybody thought they were going to get rich off of that book, The Death of Superman.
Yeah.
So.
Well, no, because they just published 10 times the quantity they normally publish. But
the person who doesn't collect comics, or even the comic collectors at that time, nobody knew,
Yeah.
And that was right at the time that the bubble popped, really, for a lot of stuff. I mean, for comics in a way.
One thing, I mean, I don't think spoilers are bad unless you're a person who really gets into the media and is reading that type of stuff all the time. Nowadays, though, to me, I think we're almost oversaturated with the amount of choices and books we have. Whereas back then, you definitely didn't have the great amount of choice you had, nor the way to get to it.
The spoilers are only on a small handful of books, and there's so many other books that come out, and there's indie books and all these things, and not everything is being spoiled.
Well, and do you enjoy reading the books now more as opposed to then when you? I mean, getting the physical copies, because I know now you can get them digitally.
I think it's a different type of liking of the books. Back then, you were reading them, I think, with more wonder as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not so much. You're just enjoying them for the story it is. There's not really any wonder in it.
But on the other hand, there's so much more choices now that you can find a book that's really in your wheelhouse.
Right.
Whereas in the olden days,
if you
didn't like superheroes, you didn't read comic books or horror or whatever. Well, there wasn't the huge gamut of things to read.
Kind of what you were saying is that the mysticism, not mysticism, but
I said wonder.
The wonder. That's it. Yeah, the wonder. Is if you pick up a new book you've never heard about, brand new book. Do you still get that wonder?
That's what I'm saying.
I
mean, don't
only
get
if he gets it in the dollar box.
Well, no, I mean, wonder, like a book you've never read before, new book that just came out. I mean, so that wonderment is kind of there in a sense.
I enjoy it, but I don't think I get that sense of wonderment as a kid would get it. Okay. It's a different kind of wonderment, different kind of feeling, definitely.
But also, as a kid, I love the G.I. Joe cartoons.
Right, exactly.
On TV. And they are unwatchable.
As a kid, getting a box of cereal and getting that treat in there, that was, it's a different sense.
The Wonderment bar was a lot lower.
Well, that's like one of my favorite animated movies from back then, Transformers the movie.
Oh,
and
I know.
And I've drugged Terry to go see it in the theaters on its re-release, and
bought DVD and Blu-ray releases based off of my nostalgia as a kid, and I've rewatched them, and 99% of them definitely don't stand up.
Well, and there's a reason why I don't own the Flash 90s TV show. I mean, it as much as I like the Flash, I liked it, I just didn't.
I picked it up when I found it.
Dark Shadows. I remember running home from getting let off of the bus and running home to make sure I caught the beginning, and I watched them on like AMC or something not long ago, and those things were awful.
See, I never watched them.
But there was a vampire and a werewolf,
but that's all you needed as a kid,
But they were pretty bad.
Yeah.
I remember when NBC redid it and made it more serious. And those, they still weren't that great, but they were, entertaining.
Yeah, I've got those. They did a little miniseries,
yeah.
When the Johnny Depp movie is at the top of the bar, that's pretty sad.
Wow. That is sad.
Growing up, my little brother's favorite TV show was Danger Mouse. And so later in life, I was like, well, I'll get him the Danger Mouse DVD sets. It'd be a cool present to get him. And after, 1 year I got him season 1, and the next year I got him season 2, and he's like, please stop. They're atrocious.
Oh, that's funny. And Harrington loved them.
He loved those to death, and he went back and watched and was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
That's like with me and the 60s Batman TV show. I loved him as a kid. There's a very few I can take until I have to turn them off.
However, that doesn't really correspond with comic books. Some
comic
books, well, except for DC maybe early on. Some of the comics, especially Marvel, were more serious and still stand up.
Right.
I'm not saying all of them. No. I'm not giving it a blanket.
Well, and we've mentioned
Stan Lee was a brilliant creator. He was not a brilliant writer.
No. He wasn't a brilliant writer.
But when you got Starlin on stuff, that still stands up.
Right.
But the writing styles have changed.
Oh yeah.
And they would rehash every issue would rehash.
Yes.
And they would explain everything, and they'd give you you'd have a paragraph about the character's origin in every single book.
Yep.
But like you said, they had to because they didn't know
every first issue. Every issue is a new issue.
Every issue is a new issue, basically.
Well, every issue is someone's first issue.
Right.
That's just like the cons. Every con is someone's first con.
And now they don't write that way because they assume
they write for the trade.
Right.
Yeah, they assume if you're not going to start reading this book at number 7, you can find 1 through 8 somewhere.
Right. Well, according to Grant Morrison, you can find Batman 1 through 600. So
you can find everything that's been put out by Batman.
And there again though is it's available. It's but they kind of lose that that wonderment. If you can read every book that's been put out, it's
and pre-internet. Your local comic book shops were it. If you went to the 2 or 3 comic book shops and they didn't have it, you didn't read it.
No,
you had to get into the CBGB and look for the listings.
And
CBG, not CBG.
And you didn't, you didn't get
the yearly guide and try to find,
And that was more for the hardcore guys too.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you found out about stuff coming out was through the comic shop. There wasn't these other avenues of information. You didn't know, didn't even know about conventions except through an ad at the local comic shop. There just wasn't this information source.
Which in a way I think is kind of better and kind of because it's there again, it goes back to being a niche.
Well, it goes back to being, like I said, just oversaturated with stuff now.
Right, yes.
I mean, with the internet, we are definitely oversaturated with entertainment, politics, news, just anything. Just so much of it.
The internet was the single best thing and single worst thing.
Yes.
Damn Al Gore. But no, and we've talked about it before, the writers hid the politics as much. Because, you're reading a Captain America book, man, this is great. He's fighting Hydra. He's kicking Ames' butt. He's beating up on Flag Smasher. The
Flag Smasher.
Flag Smasher. The president's a freaking serpent. What the... but you didn't realize that the politics and the what is it? Come on. Allegory. The metaphor. James likes the word metaphor.
Is a metaphor.
But you didn't realize that they were talking about things that were going on right now, and in a lot of sense.
Well,
now they're not hiding it.
As a kid, you probably didn't realize
over the head with it.
Yeah.
As a kid, you're just trying to get to that bam punch pow thing,
Well, Superman, the truth, justice, and the American way. The old Superman, he espoused those values.
Exactly.
He was a Boy Scout in every way, shape, and form.
He couldn't hurt. Yeah.
And they stuck to that, and now there's moral ambiguity, and
he's a citizen of the world.
Right.
So, is it better now or better then?
Things are better now, and things were better then.
Right. Finding them now, you can find them anywhere. That's great.
You just have to pay for them now.
You have to pay for them now more, and it's just I don't know. I kind of miss that.
Yeah.
I kind of miss the wonderment, of back then, and them being kind of. Well, I guess the word better.
A little bit harder to get a hold of.
They were, yes. You know,
well, and
it seemed like people talked more about them.
You know, now they're going to make a TV show, or they're going to make, you know, any TV show that had anything to do with superheroes was a really big deal. Now it's just old. It's okay.
Well, what was
That's why I still wonder why they're going to make a TV show out of this. This character's first appearance just quadrupled in price. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
You don't care about the 42 other shows that are on. Why all of a sudden now?
We didn't have the speculator market as much, I don't think, back then. I think
the speculator market that I dealt with in the 90s and early 2000s was comic collectors speculating.
Right. Well, now you've got, you know, Wall Street people, and you've got, you know, people who've never read a comic before coming into comic shops to pick up, like you said, Death of Superman, Death of Captain America. Oh, hey, this person's Walking Dead 192.
Well, and the
Wolverine's daughter, you know, this new character, let's pick her up. You know, all this.
The really high-end comic books only became high-end in, say, the last 20-ish years. Yeah. There just weren't that many people with hundreds of thousands of dollars to throw at these, so they wouldn't sustain these prices. So, you know, Action Comics #1 was still an important book, but there weren't multiple people willing to offer $1 million for it, so it wasn't going to be $1 million book.
Yeah, I remember when it broke 100,000, and everyone in here was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Now it's what, 3.1 million.
Yeah.
What's Amazing Fantasy at right now? Is it broke the million?
It's broke a million. It's one of three that had broken $1 million the last time I looked. I'm sure there's more.
There's probably what?
There's Action Detective 27, Amazing Fantasy 15, and I think Marvel Comics #1 broke $1 million.
And there were All American, the first Green Lantern there was a sale in place that was going to be over $1 million, and it fell through, but it was about to join the club.
Okay.
But on the other hand, if you wanted an Action Comics #1 and say you had $10,000, $20,000, if no one in your hometown had one, there really wasn't anywhere else you could go.
No,
today, if you've got the money, you can find one.
Yes.
Well, back in the day, you had to call.
Yeah, you had to call and say, find out.
You get the Overstreet Guide. You'd look in there to see what shops or
and hope the numbers were still good. And
I remember
start calling around.
Yeah,
Mike has the story about the guy from New York calling him for a showcase #4 and willing to buy it sight unseen. And Mike was like, "No, I'm not gonna sell it to you. I'm gonna keep it here in this area." And
I think didn't he wind up selling it because the guy he needed a section of it. He
just
paired it up with another
Yeah.
book to make a whole book.
I may have my stories crisscrossed, but there was one time where someone from New York called him and was willing to pay top dollar for it, sight unseen, and Mike told him no, that, you know, he was going to keep it in this area and not sell it off to the East Coast. So, it may have been some old Western comic or something, I don't know.
So yeah, back, you know, reading now compared to then, I mean, the wonderment you had, you know, was there as a kid, and I understand growing up you lose that wonderment a bit. It's just part of life, right? But I think, I don't know, I think that part of that wonderment was talking to your friends and talking about that you know, and yeah, we talk about them now. I mean, well, half of us read the books weekly.
Well, and like the big events.
That's the thing I was talking about, oversaturation.
The big events in comics, the Secret Wars and stuff, that had just not been done.
No.
It was new. Now a big event is like, they're going to undo this. And
now we're tired of the big events.
Yeah, we're tired of it. But when Secret Wars came out, that was a really big deal. When Crisis on Infinite Earths came out, it was a really big deal. And now a big
Contest of Champions,
a big
crossover event,
company-wide crossover is just like, oh well.
Yep, we're good. Well, we just finished War of the Realms. We're starting with Absolute Carnage.
Now they just go from one big event to another big event.
Which actually, War of the Realms, the 6-issue story was really good. I enjoyed it.
Remember that one time when Marvel said they weren't going to do any more events for the year?
Oh, yeah.
And then a week later, they announced 2 big events coming up.
Well, that's what was it. New 52 and DC did it. They said they weren't going to do any events.
Yeah.
Or no, it was new. It was Rebirth. For the first 2 years, we're not going to do it, and they did. They didn't do them.
Well,
but,
and like DC,
of course, they also said they would reveal a whole bunch of stuff in that 2 years, and haven't done it yet.
Well, before the New 52 Rebirth, DC had the Blackest Night, and then they had Brightest Day, and they're like, the people we brought back in Brightest Day, this is the last people we're bringing. If you're still dead at the end of Brightest Day, you are never, ever coming back.
Mm-hmm.
There will never be another person come back from the dead. Well, until we reboot the whole line, and then all bets are off.
Yeah.
So. Number 1, sell.
First issues do sell, yes. That's why I'm surprised that Marvel has not gone to a season kind of thing, and where they do 12 issues, and then start another number 1 after that, another season. Yeah. So
because that'd give them an opportunity, if a book's not selling, to get rid of the creative team and bring in someone else.
But they used to get rid of the creative team and continue on with issue 75.
Right. Well, now they have to give them
their own
book.
They have to give them their opportunity to tell their story.
But they used to do that. It's just issue 78.
Yeah.
It wasn't a new number 1.
Yeah.
There have been several creative teams they've fired lately that they just like, oh, your book's canceled. Go on.
Good. That's what needs to be done. If a book's not selling.
Nope, you're going to do
it ongoing.
6 issues now.
But the canceling a book and restarting it, that's a new
right.
Well, because number 1 sell.
Yeah.
Well, also in the early days, they had we're starting a new book. There was a large dollar figure to start a new book.
There were, and that's why
they would Tales of Suspense became
Iron Man.
Became Iron Man, and they just kept the same numbers because we can do that without paying this new book fee. Or Weird Tales became Weird Western. There was some book that went, completely changed genres.
Tales to Astonish 101, and then 102 was Incredible Hulk. Yeah.
And
Doctor Strange kept the Strange Tales numbering for a long time.
Yeah.
And they did that to not have to pay this fee, and then I guess that fee went away, or if it didn't, it became small enough compared to how much they made that it wasn't that big a deal anymore.
Well, tell us what you like about, I guess we'll wrap it up here again.
Hey, moment of silence for Jack Davis, the last...
That's true, that is true, the last
member
EC.
of the original EC crew.
When did Sergio start? Was he in the 70s? Maybe he was 80s, but I don't know he did. But yeah, I saw that he passed away. So Jack Davis, I liked his art. He was a good artist. So we don't have any of the EC people around anymore then. So
not the original crew.
No. All
right.
Yeah. Thanks, Kenny, for bringing it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But yeah, if you can think of any things that you missed from back in the day in collecting, let us know.
Or what you didn't, or what you don't miss.
Or what you don't miss.
And what do you like about today's, and how do they compare?
One thing I should mention, I don't miss not having to drive to all the shops, though. Which is a good thing, but anyway.
Like for what?
Well,
because you still drive to all the shops.
Well,
because you're constantly messaging us. I'm going to Impulse.
Well, I mean, having to hunt. Well, I mean, having to hunt, because say if you miss it at that Quick Trip, you have to drive to the other Quick Trip to see if they had it. I don't miss that. Yeah, I still drive to those shops and look for things. Yes, buy supplies and stuff and see if there's anything y'all need. But anyway, do like us on Facebook. You do it so much better than I do. That's why I was turning to you to do it.
Subscribe, ring the bell.
Ring the bell. That's right.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Tell your mom.
Yes. James does, An Angel and Her Unicorn?
Yeah.
Comic reviews.
Alan and I do comic reviews every week, and then there's a monthly comic book club where we pick a book and read it and discuss it.
Yeah.
And,
so check them out.
Well, we're part of the comic book club, me and Dal as well.
Well, yes, we
and
are.
Alan.
And Alan, yes. But, I mean...
You do it on Sundays, so
we do it on Sundays.
I can't participate, which is probably good.
We can change that around. we have offered to change that around.
You have?
I think so. I said we can make it. At least I have. I remember I said we could make it happen.
No, I'm just kidding.
We could do it up here.
We could.
Yeah.
It's easier.
It's probably good that I don't, though.
I can see Alan hauling those big lights around and getting the colors straight.
Yeah, he gets these huge lights. Why am I using my hands?
Video.
It's video, yeah. And
it's video.
These lights, and he's like, okay, you all can't say this and this, and smile, and it's
Oh, see, I'm out.
Yeah.
I have to smile. I'm out.
Yeah, see, yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. I just blanked. A couple months. I can actually mention this now. Riverside Comic Expo will be happening on December 7th. You'd asked me a couple of episodes back about comic show, and it can actually be. It has launched. The Facebook page is launched. Vendors are going to be. That launches Monday, I think, for the vendor applications. We are looking at a couple comic guests for the show. One has said he will be there.
Are you going to get Jack Kirby to go?
Jack will be there. We are going to be doing an onstage seance with Jack and Stan, so we'll be doing their, kind of like what was the...
I highly doubt that at the Jewish Center.
Well, they are Jewish. They were Jewish.
I'm thinking the Jewish aren't going to let you do a seance.
Well, what was it? The movies they always did on VH1, Lennon and McCartney, if they got back together before they died or something, or before Lennon died, or if Lennon never died, they got back together and did music kind of thing. Anyway, but yeah, we have asked a comic guest to be there, Mark Lamming, and has tentatively said that he would be there. He's done several, stuff for 2000 AD across the pond. He's done a lot of stuff for Dynamite. He's done James Bond. He's done Star Wars stuff. So, worked for Dark Horse. It will be at the Sherman Miller Jewish Center in Tulsa. And
do you know how much it's going to cost to get in?
It will be $5 to get in, or you can bring a new unwrapped toy for Toys for Tots and get in for the price of that.
Or what ages? Or is there any age that's free? Like 12 and under or something?
I believe 12 and under will be free.
Okay.
I believe so.
That's kind of important for a lot of families.
Yes. Oh, definitely it is, yes. So we are adding some other guests. We have not kind of put some feelers out to some guests, so we're going to hopefully get them to be there. So
it's still several months off. So.
It is several months off. But yes, it is December 7th. Yes.
There's so many.
Mark it on your calendar because that time of year does fill up.
There's so many cons that do not advertise their stuff early. It's ridiculous. So it's good to.
And we're actually going to be doing door prizes. Not your typical, hey, this is a free comic book. If you're the 10th, person that we call or whatever, we are going to have probably
an actual door.
An actual door. We are giving away a door. We'll have prizes like dinner and a movie tickets that you can. You'll get a ticket and you can put your ticket on in whichever door prize you want. And
I'd rather have the free comic.
Well, Star Wars comes out.
You have to take Dal to dinner.
Any free Hulk 181s?
Yeah, sure. I've got one right out in the car for you. It's the replica edition. Oh, you can have it. There you go.
It's the German variant?
The German variant,
that the Broken Arrow Vintage Stock has had up there.
Yes, exactly.
A crazy price.
So that's December 7th. So check out Riverside Comic Expo on Facebook and Comic Book Straight Talk on Facebook and YouTube right now. We will be coming back to iTunes, hopefully, and Google Play soon.
Hopefully.
Theoretically, in a perfect
in
world.
Theory, in perfect. No, we will be. So that's all.
Stop making air quotes, Dal.
They just
stop making air quotes.
Can't see your air quotes.
So this is Dalian,
Terry,
Kenny,
James.
Have a good one.